My name is Eric Labbe, and I'm the very fortunate sergeant who was afforded the opportunity to work with Officer Natalie Corona on our swing shift patrol team. Today I have the privilege, honor, and permission of Officer Corona's family to share with you the kind of person Natalie was and the impact that she had on our patrol team, the entire Davis Police Department, and the community she so proudly served. Officer Corona left an everlasting impression on every single member of this department. Thus, it is almost impossible for me to sufficiently describe her, as she is someone who, in my estimation, can never be described adequately. To know her was to know greatness. Natalie's personality and her kind and loving demeanor was highly infectious. She had a ripple effect that touched and forever changed everyone she came into contact with. And if you were lucky enough to get caught in her wake as I was, you too would forever be changed and would want to be a better person. We are all better people for having been in her company. Some have called Officer Corona a rookie. However, I never thought of her this way. Officer Corona's training started early on in her life when her father, Merced Corona, who served as a sergeant with the Colusa County Sheriff's Department, began taking her on ride-alongs. It always seemed to us that cop work was just naturally in her blood. It may have been because of her father's influence, it may have been her destiny, or maybe she was just born with it. Whatever the case, we all knew she was ready for the streets. She was mature far beyond her years, well respected amongst all officers, and carried herself like a seasoned officer. No one ever questioned her competence. She was not only well-trained and well-versed as a police officer, it was immediately apparent that this line of work was in her blood. Thus, to call her a rookie would be a fallacy, as it would be an inaccurate portrayal of the qualities and skills she possessed and what she was capable of accomplishing as an officer. I first met Natalie when she was a community service officer. We never said much to each other, but I loved seeing her because she was always smiling and made my day brighter. For the few weeks I worked with Natalie on patrol, I learned much about who she was, what her aspirations were, and the qualities she possessed as a person. Shortly before our first patrol shift just a few weeks ago, some of us were working out in the weight room before our shift started. Natalie walked into the room and said, "Hi." I told Natalie that if she wanted to be on the swole shift, not swing shift, she would have to do a 30-inch box jump just one time. I pointed at the box and told her, all you have to do is one box jump and you will officially be on the swole team. Natalie looked at me and laughed while measuring up the box out of the corner of her eye. She then asked for clarification. So I have to stand directly in front of that box and with one continuous motion jump up? I told her to just jump on that damn box because I really wanted to see if she could do it, and I knew she wanted to give it a try. She laughed again and walked out of the gym and into her locker room. Within 5 minutes, Natalie re-entered the gym in full uniform and stood in front of that box. She told me to turn around so she could practice. I turned away, listened as she attempted to do the box jump. I heard her crash into the box twice before I heard a clean jump. Natalie then told me she was ready. I watched, and on the first attempt, she didn't quite make it. She fell off to the side and laughed, but rather than be embarrassed and defeated, she stood in front of that box again, continued to smile, and completed her required box jump. I gave her a fist bump and said, "Good job, welcome to the team." In that moment, she was so excited and happy to be part of her new patrol team. No matter what was going on, no matter what I needed or asked of her, Natalie always tilted her head up slightly, and being 6 feet tall, would look down at me, smile ear to ear, and say, "No problem," or "I'll get right on that, Sergeant." Every time I looked at her, I always thought the same few things. 1, she's awesome. 2, I'm glad she's at the Davis Police Department. 3, she is the breath of fresh air that this department has so desperately needed for a long time. Her enthusiasm for the job was nothing short of contagious. It was inspirational. There was one incident in particular that I remember so vividly, as it sums up her indisputable eagerness for police work. Just a few weeks ago, Natalie and her partner, Kayla, were on a bike stop, and Kayla called for Code 3 cover. I responded from a few blocks away, thinking I needed to get there quickly because two of my officers were likely engaged with someone and needed backup. I got to the scene within 30 seconds, and Natalie looked at me as if they never even called for cover, as if I were overreacting. Surprising to me, they were not breathing hard. They were laughing, as Natalie told me that because he had resisted, they had to shove the guy into a bush. I asked Natalie where the guy was, and she said, my patrol vehicle. I had expected an entirely different scene when I got there and definitely didn't expect Natalie and Kayla to be laughing. They were always laughing together, so maybe I should have figured. Anyhow, Natalie got on one knee and began to search the guy's backpack for any contraband. She found a wadded up paper, looked up at me, unraveled the paper a little more, looked back up at me, and then yelled, "Jackpot!" as she held up the small quantity of methamphetamine she had just found. Natalie was smiling ear to ear and said, "This is so fun." This is what was so nice and refreshing about working with Natalie. She gave us all a newfound appreciation for the profession, and she was always excited about everything. When I return to work, this is what I will miss most. On January 10th, the city of Davis lost an officer who truly embodied what it means to be a hero and what it means to sacrifice everything for everyone. The caliber of person Officer Corona is what the vast majority of people can only aspire to be. On that day, we all lost someone especially important to each and every one of us, whether or not we had the fortune of knowing her and being in her presence. Her loss is felt worldwide because of the person she was. Officer Corona is leaving behind a family, a patrol team, a police department, a community, and a world that will always recognize her as a hero. Officer Corona was a dedicated granddaughter, daughter, goddaughter, older sister, cousin, niece, friend, police officer, SWOL team member, community service officer, crime analyst, academy recruit, student, and community member. May the Corona family and those who knew her well always remember that the entire city of Davis and the Davis Police Department will always be behind you. Natalie, we may never know why this happened. We may never accept that it happened. But if we could tell you one thing right now, it would be that you did nothing wrong. Zero wrong. You could not have done anything differently. You responded as dispatched. You parked blocking traffic to protect the drivers with your lights on. And you contacted the drivers at the collision, all while dealing with a complete road closure and heavy fog. You had all of your required duty equipment with you. Unfortunately, your duty bag was not equipped with a crystal ball. But even if you had possessed that crystal ball and you could have used it, you still would have beat us to that scene while telling us, "I'm on it, I got it covered." We all know that you wouldn't have allowed anybody to beat you to that scene because that's the kind of officer that you were. When we remember Officer Corona, we must remember her saying, "I will never quit, I never lose." And she was right, she didn't lose, she never lost. If she had the chance to fight back, she would have looked that monster in his eyes, hit him with a few stiff jabs, and then finished him off with a right cross, smiling through it all, of course. At this time, we must focus on Officer Corona's achievements and accomplishments, because that is where her legacy lies. In her short time as a solo police officer, Officer Corona made several arrests for narcotics, investigated armed robberies, and effected many other arrests. She would make it a point to transport more arrestees to the jail than the entire night's gold shift because she was on the SWOL team and she was so proud of that. Officer Corona lived and breathed police work, and her life senselessly and tragically ended doing exactly what she loved to do. So from this point on, we can honor Officer Corona's legacy by following in her footsteps and by striving to be better people. Natalie encompassed many unparalleled characteristics, and in her honor, may we all do our best to be more like her. Natalie graduated the Sacramento Police Academy in July of 2018. Her class 18BR1 is here along with classes 18BR2 and 19BR1. I am now going to read some of the qualities and characteristics that members of the Davis Police Department use to describe Natalie. If the recruits from the Academy class agree, please feel free to speak up. Natalie was hardworking and dedicated. Resilient, triumphant. Brave, courageous. A go-getter, spirited. Enthusiastic, energetic. Reliable, relentless. Heroic. As we continue, I would like to encourage those who knew Officer Corona and those from law enforcement agencies from the Davis PD, Colusa County Sheriff's Department, Escondido PD, LAPD, Chicago PD, NYPD, Boston PD, and all other agencies represented here today to feel free to speak up if you too agree that as an officer, Natalie would have encompassed these traits and characteristics. Natalie was respectful, honest, altruistic, compassionate, empathetic, patient, genuine, humble, optimistic, full of life, service before self, a force to be reckoned with, heroic. These are some of the traits that Natalie possessed and demonstrated to us over and over again. These are the qualities that, in honor of Officer Corona, we must try our best to emulate as often as we can. No one will ever be able to replace Natalie. This is simply an impossibility. Moving forward, we can try our best to live as vigorously and with as much regard for others as Natalie lived. May we always abide by her Academy's motto, respect all, fear no one. Next, I would like to read a poem that my wife wrote and dedicated to Natalie. The poem is titled, A Poem for Natalie. Wailing sirens dominate the night amidst our quiet college town. Code 1199 transmitted over the radio, a nightmare reverberating through the airwaves. Emergency vehicles careen through the streets. Desperate prayers soar up to the heavens. As heroes attempt to save one of their own, worst fears become the reality. Unanswerable questions emerge, yet no explanations satisfy. An angel is identified as a victim. A hero is taken from all of us. Our entire community has forever been changed. A once recognizable world torn apart. Sentiments are not sufficiently expressed. Words alone will not do her justice. Heavy rainfall persistently drenches us as Natalie's tears mix with ours. Clouds and fog become obscuring barriers until the sun at last emerges, clearing a path and illuminating us with a light nearly as radiant as hers. Natalie, as we all gather here today in honor of your legacy, we would like you to know just how grateful we are to you, as you so proudly served this country and protected our liberties every step of the way. Natalie, you were once an angel amongst humans, and now you are an angel amongst angels. Please watch over us and know that we loved you so much. We lost our angel that night, and I'm not sure we will ever fully recover. But what I do know is this: we will do everything in your honor with the bravery that you consistently demonstrated to us, as we believe this is what you would have wanted. The men and women in blue will deeply miss you, and we will forever be indebted to you. I miss you so very much, and I want you to know that there will always be a seat in my briefing room reserved for you. Rest in peace, Angel, until we meet again.